Every year, new players become stars and former stars become superstars. I am fascinated by which players break out and all the new names that happen each and every year, and today I want to talk about 3 up-and-coming wide receivers who have the potential to be All-Americans and guys who can become household names in 2021. Of course, not all these guys will, but they will have the upside and have showed the flash in the past. So without further ado, let's get started and talk about 3 players who I think could break out in 2021 and become big-time players. Let's first start out with the guy who has the most potential of the 3, and that is Treylon Burks from Arkansas. Before Burks was a Razorback, he grew up in the town of Warren, Arkansas, so the home state school was always around him. He was the definition of a country kid who loved to hunt and fish, then on the field because he was such a good and caring person. His grandfather was an Arkansas fan, and he actually passed away when Treylon was in high school, and he had this to say, quote, "He was always a Razorbacks fan. I kind of knew a little bit that I was going to come here, but not much. Just living that dream up for him is a big honor for me. He was really just a well-known man up in Warren, helping people and being a great man. He had the legacy to play on and off the field, and when he took the field, he was a star to say the least. There was a high school story where he apparently had injured his hand and was told he could not play wide receiver in the team's next game, but he could play defense with the cast on. Of course, he opted to do that, and after another wide receiver went down, Burks was put in just to run plays, but was not actually supposed to catch balls, but he ended up playing anyways and had a ridiculous stat line. He caught 11 passes for 285 yards and 3 touchdowns with one hand, and everyone knew this kid was a stud at that point. His high school coach had this to say, quote, "He is an unbelievable athlete who has size and speed. He will be a matchup problem for a bunch of teams. He is really physical. He could go anywhere in the country, and he chose the Razorbacks over LSU, Clemson, Auburn, and Michigan. Those are pretty good schools. He was rated as a 4-star recruit, the number 16 wide receiver, and the 103rd best player in the class of 2019. The Razorbacks also signed 4-star receivers Trey Knox, Shamar Nash, and TQ Jackson, and Burks was the headline of one of the top wide receiver classes in the nation. As a freshman, he caught 29 passes for 479 yards, but somehow not a single touchdown pass, and I blame that on Chad Morris. In 2020, that would change as he went for over 100 yards and a touchdown in his first game against Georgia, caught 11 passes for 137 yards and a touchdown against Ole Miss, and had over 100 yards and a touchdown in their game against Texas A&M. He would cool off, but against Missouri, he went for a career-high 206 yards on 10 catches and a touchdown as well, and I remember watching that game. He finished the year at 51 receptions for 820 yards and 7 touchdowns, and in a normal 12 to 13 game slate, he would have definitely been a 1,000-yard receiver. He was seen as a big-time athlete with all the tools to become a true superstar, and he definitely has lived up to that. Arkansas tight end Hudson had this to say, quote, "I mean, he makes catches that you see once every 5 years. Sometimes in practice, I'm like, dude, if we were playing in a game right now, you'd have 5 of the top 10 plays on ESPN. Not only is he a star in practice and on the field, but he's also a great punt returner and can literally do just a bit of everything. He played some of his best games against the best competition last year, and he's kind of a player who just has that it factor, and I think he has potential to be a first-team All-SEC selection and a dark horse All-American, and could have a breakout season like Elijah Moore from Ole Miss did last year. The debate for who is the best wide receiver in the SEC will come down to Burks and Georgia's George Pickens, but also don't rule out Alabama's John Mechie to be right up there with them. I watched Burks tear it up against Mizzou last year, and this is a name that you guys need to know and remember because he will be a big time next year. But let me know what you guys think. How good can he be, and who do you think the best wide receiver in the SEC will be? If you have not already, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you want to support the channel and if you like college football, and let me know another wide receiver I should include in my next video like this. Typically, 4-star recruits choose big-time programs, and at minimum, a Power 5 school. Khalil Shakir is a superstar for Boise State and may actually be the most underrated wide receiver in college football right now. But I know you're probably asking, why did a 4-star kid choose Boise State to begin with? And we have to go back in time. He grew up in California and would become an absolute star for his high school. Can't find a ton of information about what happened during that time, but he played wide receiver, running back, was on special teams, and even played on defense, and he was seen as a guy who could go high major. He had offers from schools such as UCLA, Illinois, Colorado, Arizona State, and Washington State, but he chose a different route as he committed to Boise State. At the time, he was a 3-star recruit and a good player, and one college scout said, quote, "Shakir has the game-breaking ability and the potential to be a big-time player in college. He's explosive with the ball in his hands, can stretch the field, and is a dangerous return man as well." He was eventually bumped up as 24/7 Sports said he was a 4-star recruit, the number 22 athlete, and the 360th best player in the class of 2018. He played right away for Boise State and would catch 16 passes for 170 yards and a touchdown as a freshman, but it was his flash and the potential he had in the future that had everyone so excited. As a sophomore, he broke out into a young star as he caught 63 passes for 872 yards and 6 touchdowns, with 3 more on the ground. Going into 2020, it was going to be a big year as John Hightower had just left for the NFL, so there was going to be a void to fill for that wide receiver 1 spot. He was expected to have a huge 2020, and that's exactly what he did. In 7 games, he caught 52 passes for 719 yards and 6 touchdowns, and went over 100 yards on 4 different occasions. He was so good in 2020 that he was compared to Devontae Adams, as Shakir was averaging 131 yards from scrimmage per game, and that had not been seen since Devontae Adams. He announced he was coming back for his senior year and could emerge as one of the top wideout prospects for the 2022 NFL Draft. He has the athleticism, production, and intangibles to be a good NFL player, and he's definitely someone to know and keep an eye out on in the Mountain West next year, and should give you a reason to watch Boise State football a little bit. Let me know though, what do you think of him, how high is his ceiling, and what's another group of 5 wide receiver I could take a look at next. Finally, before we get into the last one, be sure to suggest what video topic I should do next, and give the video a like if you have not already. We're going to go over to the Big Ten and talk about a guy who was not talked about a ton in 2020 due to his team's poor performance on the field and some other good receivers in his conference. Jahan Dodson and Parker Washington became the bright spots of the Penn State passing game last year, and they're both guys who could break out majorly in 2021. But today, we're going to talk about Jahan Dodson. Before he was a Nittany Lion, he was always told he was too small, too skinny, or too short to be a star, but he never let that get to him. He went to Nazareth High School in Pennsylvania for 3 years, and he actually went over to New Jersey for his junior year, but he would come back to Nazareth for his senior year, and he blossomed into arguably the best player in school history. He actually originally committed to play for UCLA, but after Chip Kelly came in, he decided to reopen his recruitment, and he eventually flipped to the home state Nittany Lions on early signing day. His former high school quarterback Alan Walters, who played for Vanderbilt, said, quote, "Jahan isn't the biggest athlete who catches everyone's eyes before a game, but once he starts playing football, we're all watching something special. His routes are so smooth, he can make anybody miss, and probably the most impressive thing about him, he makes it all look effortless." Those are some high praise for a quarterback who had an offer from Alabama, and he's actually at Mississippi State right now, and he will compete for the job in 2021. He always had a chip on his shoulder, and according to 24/7 Sports, Dotson was a 4-star recruit, the number 36 wideout, and the 192nd best player in the class of 2018. He arrived in Happy Valley with big shoes to fill, with guys such as Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, and Saeed Blacknall becoming stars there. As a freshman, he saw the field as he caught 13 passes for 203 yards and no touchdowns, but the potential was there. With Juwan Johnson leaving for Oregon, he could join KJ Hamler as the go-to wide receivers for new quarterback Sean Clifford, and you also can't forget their star tight end Pat Freiermuth. As a result, Dotson stepped up and would catch 27 passes for 488 yards and 5 touchdowns, and with Hamler leaving for the 2020 NFL Draft, the wide receiver room was going to take a massive hit for 2020. Penn State football struggled with both quarterback and team play this year, but Dotson would emerge as a go-to player alongside true freshman Parker Washington. He had a couple of great performances, and at one point he even led the Big Ten in receiving yards, and he actually finished the year with 52 catches for 884 yards and 8 touchdowns, while also becoming a third-team Big Ten selection. He had the chance to enter the 2021 NFL Draft, but he has chosen to return for his senior year, and I bet he will improve his stock a little bit more. The reason he got overshadowed so much is because there was guys like Ohio State's Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave, Purdue's David Bell, and Indiana's Ty Freifogel, and all those guys will return once again in 2021. And this could be the best wide receiver group we've seen in a long time out of the Big Ten, and it's definitely going to be tough for Dotson to shake that narrative, but he will definitely be a sleeper come the 2021 NFL Draft. I like both him and Parker Washington for next year, and let's see how Penn State football does. I'd love to know your thoughts on all 3 of these guys, where they'll be drafted, and I definitely want to know other players from any other position in any other school that I can do next, and I want to do this series a lot more, so please be sure to show your support with a comment and hitting that like button. And before you go, if you've not already subscribed, you're definitely not going to want to miss out on college football content, so be sure to hit that subscribe button and check out all my other videos on the end screen and my ultimate college football playlist on both the end screen and in the comment section below. Hope to see you guys again soon, but until next time, peace.